The rain had already soaked my shoes by the time I reached the front steps of the small apartment building that had been my home for nearly 12 years. I stood there staring at the bright orange eviction notice taped to my door, hoping it would somehow disappear if I looked at it long enough. My name was printed across the top in bold letters, leaving no room for doubt. After losing my job months earlier and falling behind on rent despite working every temporary job I could find, I had finally run out of time. I unlocked the door one last time. The apartment was almost empty because most of my belongings had already been sold to cover bills. The only things left were a few boxes of clothes, some old books, and a dusty landscape painting that had belonged to my late grandmother. The landlord watched impatiently from the hallway as movers carried my boxes outside. "That's everything?" he asked. I nodded quietly. He pointed toward the painting. "You taking that old thing too?" "Yes," I replied without hesitation. It wasn't worth anything, at least not financially. The frame was scratched, the colors had faded, and nobody knew who had painted it. But my grandmother had loved it. Every time I visited her little cottage as a child, the painting hung above the fireplace. She always smiled whenever she looked at it, though she never explained why. As the movers drove away, I found myself sitting on a park bench with nothing but 2 suitcases and the old painting resting beside me. For the first time in my life, I truly had nowhere to go. That evening, I checked into the cheapest motel I could afford. The room smelled of old carpet and stale air, but at least it had a roof. I leaned the painting against the wall while counting the little money I had left. Enough for maybe 3 more nights. No more. Unable to sleep, I kept staring at the painting. It showed a quiet farmhouse surrounded by rolling green hills beneath a golden sunset. Something about it felt strangely comforting. As I moved it closer to the bed, I heard a faint rattle inside the frame. I frowned. That had never happened before. Curious, I carefully removed the backing paper, expecting to find a loose nail or broken piece of wood. Instead, my fingers touched a folded envelope hidden between the canvas and the frame. The paper had turned yellow with age. Across the front, written in elegant handwriting, were 4 simple words. "For my dear Emma." Emma, my grandmother's name? My heartbeat quickened as I unfolded the letter. "My sweetest Emma, if you are reading this, then life has probably become difficult again. I pray this letter reaches you when it is most needed. Behind this painting rests something far more valuable than the artwork itself. It belongs to our family and always will. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. With love, Father." My hands trembled. Behind the letter rested another folded document wrapped carefully in wax paper. I unfolded it slowly. It appeared to be a property deed. But not just any property. It described ownership of over 50 acres of farmland, several hours outside the city. The document was dated almost 70 years earlier. I stared at it in disbelief. Could this possibly still be valid? The next morning, I visited the county records office. I expected someone to laugh and tell me the document was meaningless. Instead, the clerk examined it carefully before looking at me with wide eyes. "Where did you get this?" "It belonged to my grandmother." She disappeared into another office for nearly 20 minutes. When she returned, her expression had completely changed. "This deed was never transferred." "What does that mean?" "It means, according to our records, the property still legally belongs to your grandmother's heirs." I couldn't speak. "That would be me?" She nodded. "If you're able to prove your relationship?" Within 2 weeks, I gathered birth certificates, family records, and every document required. The verification process took another month. Every day felt endless. Then one Friday afternoon, my phone rang. The county office had approved everything. The land was legally mine. I drove there the following morning. The property looked nothing like the peaceful painting. Tall grass covered broken fences. The farmhouse leaned dangerously to one side, windows shattered from years of neglect. Trees had swallowed much of the old driveway. Still, it was mine. As I explored the land, an elderly neighbor slowly approached in an old pickup truck. I wondered when someone from the family would finally come back. He said kindly, "You knew my grandmother?" He smiled warmly. "I knew her father." He pointed toward the farmhouse. "He built every board in that house himself." The old man introduced himself as Mr. Harris. Over coffee at his nearby home, he shared stories I had never heard before. My great-grandfather had owned one of the most successful apple orchards in the county before illness forced the family to leave decades earlier. Everyone assumed the property had eventually been sold. Nobody knew the deed had remained hidden. "You look just like your grandmother," Mr. Harris said softly. "She always believed someone would return one day." His words stayed with me. I decided not to sell. Instead, I used a small bank loan backed by the property's value to begin restoring the farmhouse. The work was exhausting. Every floorboard seemed rotten. The roof leaked constantly. Wild vines covered nearly every wall. Many nights I questioned whether I had made the biggest mistake of my life. But each morning I kept going. Neighbors began volunteering. A retired carpenter repaired the porch. Local teenagers helped clear the fields. An electrician donated several weekends of labor. Little by little, the forgotten farmhouse came back to life. While repairing one bedroom wall, I discovered another hidden compartment. Inside rested dozens of old family photographs, handwritten journals and letters dating back nearly a century. Reading them felt like meeting relatives I had never known. I laughed at their stories. I cried through their struggles. Their courage became my own. Months later, the apple orchard slowly returned as well. Many of the ancient trees still survived beneath years of neglect. Agricultural experts helped identify healthy roots. Soon, fresh blossoms covered branches that everyone believed were dead. The first harvest wasn't large, but it was enough. Local markets eagerly purchased every basket. Visitors began stopping by simply to hear the incredible story behind the orchard. One reporter asked me during an interview, "Do you consider yourself lucky?" I smiled before answering. I don't think this was luck. My grandmother protected something precious, because she believed someone in the future would need hope more than money. That person just happened to be me. The story spread farther than I ever expected. People facing difficult times wrote letters describing how they found strength after hearing what had happened. Some had lost jobs. Others had lost homes. Many simply needed a reason to keep believing tomorrow could be different. A year after arriving with nothing but 2 suitcases and an old painting, I stood on the restored farmhouse porch during the annual harvest festival. Children laughed while families picked apples together. Music drifted across the fields. Neighbors filled long picnic tables beneath strings of glowing lights. Inside the house, the old painting once again hung above the fireplace exactly where it had always belonged. Only now I finally understood why my grandmother treasured it so deeply. It had never been about the artwork. It had been about faith. Faith that even after heartbreaking loss, forgotten blessings can still be waiting quietly behind life's oldest frames, ready to change everything when the right person finally looks closely enough.